Greetings, traveler. I have made this funny looking birdhouse with an easily removable door to make housekeeping easier when the tenants are on vacation. Keep looking if you want to see how I made it. Naturally, I modeled the house in Fusion 360, which is my weapon of choice when I want to machine something. Otherwise, and especially for parts I'm 3D printing, I would rather use Onshape, which is, believe it or not today's sponsor. Fusion is equipped with some OK features for making G-code. And for those who don't know, G-code is the list of operations or moves the motors on the CNC will make. The final operation in Fusion is to lay all the tiles inside of the wood stock. I made a point of doing this project with parts I already had on hand. And I happen to have this fine plate of pine laying around. Thumbs up for fine pieces of pine. The controller that came with my CNC is unfortunately not with us anymore, and here you can see the controller I made myself. I 3D printed the enclosure and wanted to test the setup before finalizing it. It is working, and I should be able to print the last piece that holds the fan in about 6 to 12 months from now. No promises though. I'm using G-Center to control the machine, and as you saw earlier, I moved the machine to approximately where I want 0 to be. I'm now moving it a bit into the piece before I lower it down to find where set 0 is. Fortunately, money is not an issue for me, and I'd rather use a crisp euro for this operation. When the bit is clamping the paper, I go an extra 0.1 to compensate for the thickness of the paper. I then press the 0 set button before moving the set axis up some millimeters. For some obscene reason, G-Sender does not lift the tool before moving to the start point of the G-code. Guess how I found that out? Annoying noise warning. Here you can see that I made a small optimization failure. I often use the Keep Tool Down feature in Fusion 360 and put a safe distance of 5mm so that it doesn't lift the tool all the time. In this case 20mm would be fine, and that would stop the set axis from going up and down between every pass. I fixed that on the fly and saved myself a whopping minute or two. The screws I had on hand are 4mm in diameter, which is what I modeled the holes to be as well. And the bit is 3.1mm, which is why it needs to circle down for each and every hole. And now it's starting to cut the perimeters of each piece. In the model I made some tabs that are supposed to be about 1mm high. Since the pine plate is curving a bit up in the center, the tabs were never made, and I had to take some extra care. In these situations, it's important to squint extra hard if you're not using protective goggles. Here I stop the CNC with the big red button to get the piece out of harm's way. And to my great surprise, the program is now done. Would you like to hear another really annoying sound? Sandpaper time. I have recently made myself a dedicated box for sandpaper. I am starting to become somewhat of an adult. Some of the holes did not go all the way through, so I had to help them a little bit. And also, I wanted to show off how good I am with changing bits in the drill. Bam! Now, take a look at me putting things back where it belongs when I'm done with it. More adult points for me. Now I'm countersinking the holes so that the screws will go all the way down and some. You'll see why in a second. And to quote Hermione, "Is that really what my hair looks like from behind?" And now, can you spot the subject for the next woodworking video I'm making? And this is vacuuming ASMR. Here you also get a clean show of the vacuum mod I made for my CNC. It is two 3D printed parts inserted into each other with a taper so that it's able to build vacuum quite nice. And it's really easy to take in and out to do some cleaning. Now I'm going to make the front door of the birdhouse, and I'm going to make it out of this piece of oak. Here you can see the model I made for the front door. When I press simulate, I can double check that the program is not doing anything weird, which happens way too often in Fusion 360. And here you can see the tabs that are holding the piece in place after most of the machining is done. All looks good, so when I press post process, I get to come up with a very scientific and accurate name for the G code. And then I go and load it into GSender. When you're doing this kind of work, it's important with safety. It's also a good idea to start the drill before starting the CNC. This is oak, which is a bit harder than the pine. Therefore, I'm running the machine a bit slower. 1000 millimeters per second instead of 1500 millimeters per second. And 1 millimeter for cut depth for the oak instead of 1.5 millimeter for the pine. My shop vac has always been in a bad mood for some reason. Each time I cut the power to the drill, which is fed from the shop vac is getting angry with me. The idea with having these slots on the inside of the door is so that the birds will be able to climb out of the house easier. As your mother used to say when I come to visit, this is simply too big. Over to the grinder! which is why I rarely visit anymore. Now what your wife says, on the other hand. I'm going to paint the outside to protect it from the rain, and I do not want paint to be a part of a baby bird's diet, so I'm only painting the outside. And now, time for a little bit of sparkle, as we say in Norway. I believe you call it filler in English. In this clip I was about to go out with my dog, and in the background you can hear the Dogecoin miner I had not turned off for this short session. I'm using the Dogecoin miner to heat up my workshop. It is drawing around 800 watts from the socket, and it's able to maintain the temperatures inside of my workshop at around 22 degrees Celsius all by itself. And I'm actually making almost every crone back. The door had a small crack in it, so I'm using some CA glue to fill it right up. Here I'm using some of the finest teak oil you can find. Just look at that color. And there you have it, my very own birdhouse. And feel free to give that like button a proper smashing.